Hello dear students, you all are welcome in this session of Unity and Diversity chapter. We are going to start with the ecosystems here. So in this session, we are going to understand a lot of interesting things like what is analogous and homologous structures, the convergent and divergent evolution, how the evolutionary things might have taken place, and what are the process of evolution. So it is going to be a very interesting session. So first of all, let's understand what are analogous and homologous structures which exemplify the theme of unity and diversity. So both the patterns arise due to selection pressure and within an ecosystem. Now biotic and abiotic factors provide the pressure that contribute to natural selection and species diversification. Now, so how does this process of pressure application happens and how does it actually leads to natural selection? Now let's understand that. So first of all, what is natural selection? So natural selection is basically a selection pressure due to which selected individuals of a population survive. For example, these are a few birds. Okay, so these are few birds, and this bird has given rise to many eggs. Several eggs have been produced. Okay, out of these several eggs, few might have been broken during the course of their development in the beginning, even before hatching, right? So out of these, say 6 7 eggs, only 4 eggs have successfully hatched and given rise to small birds. Okay, so small birds have come into existence. But now these 4 birds, they might have different characteristics. Few of them might be weak, few of them will be strong. So this mother, she might be able to feed a few birds more appropriately, while the others are not able to eat or fulfill their hunger, or they're not actually growing or developing very properly. So out of these 4 birds, probably 3 birds have actually grown bigger and 1 bird have died in this stage, in this earlier stage. So these 3 birds are actually stronger when compared to all of the eggs. So out of these so many eggs, only 3 birds have grown up big. Now these 3 birds, they may also be taken up by some predators if some predator eats a few of them. So the strongest one, which will be able to fly away from the dangers and survive in adverse conditions, is going to survive. So say out of these 3 birds, only 1 bird grew uh, up to the later stages and it actually produced more offsprings. So this is how here this process of natural selection is taking place. So this is just one case where we are talking in terms of a very short time period, where a bird is giving birth to several eggs. It is laying several eggs, and finally only 1 bird is successfully surviving out of all of them. So this is the process where natural selection is basically called as the survival of the fittest. Survival of the fittest. So this is one example. The better example can be, for example, there were snakes. So if we see a larger picture, so there were snakes. These snakes earlier, they had small legs. Okay, so they actually had legs like this. But slowly what happened, because they had very long body. So for example, if this is one snake with larger legs and this is another snake, it had a little bit smaller legs when compared to that one. Now suppose for example a predator is coming from behind, they both will try to run, and these are some bushes in which actually they are going to go and they're going to hide over here. Now, if this predator is coming from here, they both have understood that a predator is coming and we have to run. Now, this one is trying to run and it will take almost say 5 seconds time to reach up to these bushes. And this one, it has smaller legs and it is actually crawling and it is faster than this one, and it will reach there in 3 seconds. So, in this time, so here this first one has reached within 3 seconds, so this will be saved and this will be killed by the predator because it was remained behind. So this is how this is a better one, so this will survive. And now if this one is going to produce the offsprings, so continuous same sort of process have taken place, and after many time, like a lot of years after the same process is taking place, some of the you can say the in the offsprings, they actually did not even have legs at all. So slowly the size of the legs actually kept on decreasing, and after some time, after say many thousands of years later, a new species actually evolved which did not have legs at all. So now this one will be even much more faster than this one. So this is called as the natural selection, where the survival of the fittest formula actually works. And Charles Darwin actually gave this theory. So now biotic and abiotic factors. So biotic factors are the ones which are the living things that are present in any ecosystem, and abiotic factors are the non-living parts or factors of an ecosystem. For example, water, temperature, or you can say light, and sand, soil, all these are abiotic factors, while the biotic factors are the other living organisms. So they both might put some pressure on any particular species, and which will contribute to actually origin of new characteristics after a very long time. Continuously, if this sort of pressure has been put on the organism, then selectively only those organisms will survive in that species that will be better than the other ones. And if they will produce their offsprings, the offsprings will be definitely better. So this is how the species diversification takes place and origin of new species takes place. So let's now understand what are analogous and homologous structures. So first of all, let's understand analogous structures. Okay, what is analogous structure? Simple idea I'm trying to give. So analogous structures are the one which actually have similar function. So they actually have similar function, but their origins might be different. Okay, their structures might be different. Structure, internal structure I'm talking about here. Structure might be different, or their origins are different. Origins are different. Okay, so if we take an example, for example, bats are actually mammals. They have wings. But if we talk about birds, they also have wings, but they totally belong to a different group of aviation, that sort of particular. So birds is a different category and mammals is a different category. So both of them are having wings. So the function of both have similar function. Of the wings function is same, they both help in flying, while their origin and their structure is totally different. So a bat's wing will be somehow similar to the hands and legs of you can say the mammals, while in birds the origin of their wings is totally different. So these are analogous structures. So in the course of evolution, they might have developed these structures which actually have similar function, but their ancestors or their origins are actually different. So these are analogous structures. If we talk about homologous structures, what are homologous structures? So here in homologous structures, their functions might be different. Functions are different, okay, but their origins are same. Origin are same, okay, and their internal structures are same. Structure are same. So here let's take an example. For example, if I talk about four limbs, so if you say hand in humans, okay, so if you say hands in humans, okay, they help in grasping. Okay, if you talk about fins of dolphin, fins of a dolphin, or if you talk about wings of a bat, or if you talk about legs in cattle, all right, so they help in locomotion. The hands in human, they are helping in grasping. Fins in dolphin, they're helping to swim, and wings in bat, they are helping the bat to fly. So now all of them have developed from a similar structure. So they are actually the four limbs in all of them. but they all are having different functions, but their origin is same. If you see the internal structure, their internal structures will be same. In all of them, the internal structures are absolutely same. So basically, these are indicating two sort of evolution. So in analogous structures, they actually belong to, you can say, convergent evolution. They show a convergent evolution where different species are actually developing features which are actually same. So this is called as convergent evolution. Okay, convergent evolution. While homologous structures, so they actually have a same ancestor, and same ancestor is developing different features according to the environment in which they are living. So they are actually developing into different species, so their functions are actually different, but still they are belonging from the same ancestor. Internally their structures will be same, and this sort of evolution is called as divergent. We can see divergence, so divergent evolution. All right. So example here, I think you have understood. And here also, if I want to write the example, you can write wings of bat. Okay. And wings in birds. So they both are actually convergent evolution. One is evolving from birds actually, and one is evolving from mammals. One is a mammal, but they both are having same feature, which are wings that are helpful in flying. So they have similar functions. Here the functions are different, but the forelimbs have developed into different structures. Their functions are different, but internal structures are the same. So this is really important, convergent evolution and divergent evolution. I hope the concept is clear, and the same thing will be used multiple times in this chapter, and which will, I think, easily will be understood now. The structure function relationship exists between natural selection favors individuals that are adapted to the environment. The particular organism which is more adapted to the environment will be surviving, and the others which are not able to survive the inappropriate conditions around, so they will not be able to survive. So here the fittest are being the surviving ones, and they will actually be the improved version of their ancestors. So over generation, the characteristics of those members of the population that survive to reproductive age becomes more common. So the change in species over time is known as evolution. So the change in species over time is known as evolution. For example, just as we saw the example of the snake, so a particular different species that has now evolved into a different species, and it has actually lost its legs in the time of evolution. When unrelated species encounter the same selection pressure, for example, all of the organisms that are living in water, underwater, they all need to swim. So although they belong to different families, for example, some are mammals, some are pisces, but still they all need to swim. Okay, so that is how they all will develop fins. For example, dolphins, they are mammals, but still they have the fins. And other fishes, they all belong to Pisces group, but still they all also have fins. So they can develop analogous structures. They are similar in appearance and function, but have different histories. For example, the long-eared Jeroba and kangaroos have distinct evolutionary histories. However, they both develop long ears for heat exchange, movement by hopping, and extended tail for balance. So they both have a lot of features which are similar. Okay, these features are example of convergent evolution. So just as I told, convergent evolution, that is different species are developing similar kind of features, and this is called as a convergent evolution. Now the result of both organisms living in arid habitats, arid is dry habitats, okay, and yet they have significantly different reproductive strategies, as the Jeroba develops placenta during pregnancy, and kangaroo is a marsupial, which means that the young complete development in pouch outside of the uterus. Okay, so here the young ones are developed inside the pouch outside the uterus. But here in this particular organism, in Jeroba, during the pregnancy, the young ones are actually developing inside the uterus by formation of a placenta. These examples show that the habitat of an organism can drive both convergence and divergence. It follows that loss of habitat and unique environments is significant factor uh, which can actually either help in evolution of new species, but it also increases the threat of extinction of species. For example, if this is a particular species and it cannot tolerate very high temperature, and due to environmental condition changes, the temperature is increasing day by day of the ecosystem around it. So there are two possibilities: either this particular organism, this will evolve and become a stronger one, and its offsprings will actually be able to tolerate these adverse conditions and they will multiply. The other possibility is that this particular species, they will not be able to survive in these harsh conditions and they might get extincted. So both the possibilities are there. So one is either evolution, or the another one is extinction. So that is the possible reason why a lot of species that were present in the earlier times, you can say millions and millions of years ago, they are not available today due to extinction, due to these selection pressures which they could not survive. Okay, other species which survived, they possibly have brought some changes in themselves, because of which they could uh, possibly cope up the adverse conditions. So now evolution and speciation, what is the evidences of evolution? So there are a lot of evidences that are found in the fossils, where we can study that many years ago, you can say 300 million years ago, or even more, fossils are found in which we have evidences of life, and different sort of organisms were present then also. So the theory that the species change over time by mechanism of natural selection has such a strong predictive and explanatory power that is unlikely to be falsified. So now here we can see a particular figure in which it is having 5 finger. This is a pentadactyl, that means five particular fingers are present in this particular organism. So this is a fossil on which this particular stamp has been found, which seems to be a hand or a leg footprint of certain organism, that is almost 280, so it is 300 million years old. So we can see that here. So this is 280 million years old. Explain how the shared anatomy of links diverse functions prove evidences of the evolution. So already the pentadactyly that we have, like 5 fingers even in our hands, are still present today, and they were still present 280 million years ago in certain other organisms. So definitely evolution have taken place, but still there are certain common structures, common features that can still be found. How do analogous and homologous structure exemplify commonality and diversity? So the wings of a bat and seagull are similar. For example, bat is a mammal and seagull is a bird. So their form and function is same, but still, so it's not result of common ancestry. How did these analogous structures develop? So they developed because of, just as I told you, because of divergent evolution. Okay, sorry, convergent evolution we will call this. So analogous structures develop due to convergent evolution. Okay, and homologous structures which might differ in their function, they develop due to divergent. So homologous structures, so they develop due to, you can say, divergent evolution. Okay, do remember this is really important. So let's go ahead in the chapter. Evolution has change in heritable characteristics of a population. This is strong evidence for the characteristics of population changing over time. Biologists call this process evolution. It is diversity of life developed and lies in the heart of scientific understanding of natural world. Evolution only concerns heritable characteristics. So what are the heritable characteristics? So basically these are the characteristics which are given from the parents to their children, so which are actually brought forward in their offspring. So these are the traits that are inherited by the offspring from the parents, and it is emphasized in the definition. Now evolution is change in heritable characteristics of a population. Now the mechanism of evolution is now well understood. It is natural selection. Evolution by natural selection is also called as Darwinism, which we just understood. There is a strong evidence for the characteristic of individual organism changing during lifetime. For example, trees can develop very different forms. For example, if you grow a tree under some shade, it might develop into a different structure. If you grow it in an open position where it is getting full sunlight and wind, then it might have certain different structure. So this is how you can say that different structures might be present depending on the kind of evolution that is taking place. So students, here let's understand birds are influenced by hearing their parents singing when they develop their song. So these are certain traits that are actually accepted or that are acquired by an organism after its birth. So they are not actually inherited. These are called as acquired characteristics. So this thing, like a tree, so what shape will it grow into will be decided in which position actually it is planted. Birds, they're influenced by hearing their parents singing, so they will also learn this pattern of singing from their parents. Humans, tennis player, so the child was not actually having the same bone or muscle mass. After continuously playing tennis, the child might develop a stronger muscle and bone mass in them while they hold the racket. So these all things are actually, so also children, they learn the languages that the parents are speaking. So these are all are acquired characteristics. These are not the inherited characteristics. Okay, so inherited are the ones which does not need to be learned. They are actually present, or already the child will have them in them. Okay, so before Charles Darwin published Origin of Species, the leading theory of evolution was based on inheritance of acquired characteristics. So before the theory of natural selection, inheritance of acquired characteristics was the theory that was working. The main proponent of this theory was basically the Lamarckism, okay, which was given by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. So it is obvious that the seeds of tree growing symmetrically will not grow into asymmetric offspring unless they are exposed to same environment as the parent. Similarly, a tennis player children will not develop a stronger bones in one arm than the other. So it is not possible. These are the acquired characteristics, not the inherited ones. So if you see Lamarck, he did not consider the theory of you can say the inherited characteristics inside the DNA. He simply said that if a tennis player has developed stronger muscles, then definitely the child will also develop a stronger muscles. So this theory is no longer accepted, but it was one of the very initial theories that was given regarding evolution. So at that time, it had a very importance or a significant role to understand the evolutionary process. But later on, a lot of theories have come which actually included the inheritance factor into them, that whatever is information is present in the DNA of a particular organism, that will be passed on to the offspring, and that will actually take all the characteristics that are present in the parents to the offspring. Okay, not the acquired ones. In fact, the only the inherited characteristics will be passed on to the next generation. No mechanisms has been developed for environment causing specific adaptive changes. Okay, so therefore acquired characteristics are not inherited. So just understand the difference. Okay, inherited characteristics will be the ones which are actually brought forward from the parent to the children in the form of the DNA, while the acquired characteristics are the ones after taking birth into this particular world, a particular organism or a plant, the way it is developing, depending on the external environment, kind of food they are eating, okay, and the kind of exposure that they're getting, the kind of activities they're doing, so accordingly their growth and development will take place. So those all will be the acquired characteristics which they will receive after taking birth onto the earth. Okay, not they are not actually given from the parents, they have actually learned it or acquired them after getting birth. So now theory, pragmatic truth in everyday language, the true statement is the one that everyone agrees corresponds to reality. So there are a lot of things that actually we believe that they exist, but nobody knows actually if they exist or not. So in everyday language we call something true. For example, we have several gods that we worship. Nobody has ever seen any god, but different religions, they have their own beliefs and they consider them to be true. Okay, they consider them to be real, but nobody actually has seen the god ever in their life, but still we believe them. So this is actually a theory that is working here. However, in corresponds to a theory of truth is not only the possibility. For example, the pragmatic theory of truth holds an assertion to be true if it works. Okay, so if we talk in scientific terms, different observations of scientists may give them different ideas, and on the basis of those ideas and those observations they actually come to certain conclusion and they give their own observation, their own theory. So basically the that particular theory can be a pragmatic truth, the truth that might work, and in certain other cases they might not be accepted by other people. So such theories are actually falsified. For example, the theory given by Lamarck. Okay, he said whatever is present in the parent, whatever is developed by the parent, it will be sent to the offspring also. But actually he did not consider the factor of inheritance or any acquired or inherited characteristics. So that is why the theory was falsified later on, but when he gave the theory it was the truth. So that is the pragmatic truth here. So, however, the nature of science makes it possible to prove formally that the theory of evolution by natural selection is true. So, today in